So, Sai, you're a fire demon, right? You know, it's becoming a little concerning. Most of your guys' questions lately are about me being a demon. But yes, that is true. And so, that probably means you're more vulnerable to water, right? That's also true, which means you sending me to hunt any water monsters is basically a death sentence. Especially ones as powerful as Namiel. Especially when I'm dealing with high blood pressure! So then, how do you keep yourself clean and smelling fresh? Oh, I only just use soap instead of water. Then I just spray a whole bunch of lavender cologne into the air in a small room until you can't see or breathe and stand there for about 5 minutes. That's also how I countered the Fiver Bros stink so we could all come back to Astera. You're welcome. Where do you even get that much soap? Combat is unpredictable, and one needs every advantage they can get in order to outdo their opponent. And arguably, the biggest advantage one can have after preparation and strategy is maintaining proper footing. If you can't keep your feet firmly planted on the ground, you will be off balance, making any strikes you manage to throw less efficient and leaving you vulnerable to counterattacks from the enemy. And that's if you can even manage to stay on your feet, as once again, without proper footing, you could easily slip and fall, at which point you're basically at your opponent's mercy. And a handful of monsters are able to do this as well, such as Gerardus laying down giant globs of mud to seriously slow you down, or Velkhana literally freezing your feet to the floor. And, of course, our monster of today's discussion, who can lay down the slippery stuff to send you stumbling and sliding all throughout the area, completely at the mercy of Mizutsune. A relatively recently discovered species, Mizutsune has a sleek, lithe body adorned with scales and fish-like fins on its fox-like head, back, and tail, while strangely also having fur on their chest, underbelly, legs, and tail, setting them apart from other leviathans. However, Mizutsune is a species of sexual dimorphism, meaning the males and females have different appearances. The males typically grow larger and have more pleasing, vibrant colors, namely light cream-colored bodies with dark purple fur and longer pink fins with yellow markings. Meanwhile, the females are known to be smaller, have shorter fins, and have much duller colors and black fur. So the male has to be the one that looks good, the classic peacock scenario. But what both genders share are their feet. Once again unique compared to other leviathans, their feet are curved, with one particularly long, hook-like claw to help keep their grip on the wet, slippery riverbanks they prefer. A close relative of Almadron, Mizutsune similarly lives in locales with a nice mix of land and shallow water, namely the Misty Peaks, Hirosu Jungle, Primal Forest, Sacred Pinnacle, Shrine Ruins, and Tower in the Old World. They are much more comfortable on land, although they are more than capable of swimming, especially when they enter the water to scare up a school of fish into leaping into the air, where they leap after them and gobble them down. Fish are their preferred diet, along with other small endemic life, although they will occasionally target larger prey, such as kelby. Because that's large prey, apparently. Anyway, they're capable predators with recurved teeth like a snake that keeps its prey hooked and prevents escape, at least without massive injury. However, they still have to contend with some heavy hitters, such as Zinogre, Astalos, Legiocris, Nargacuga, and Plesioth. So, how do they contend with these threats, you may wonder? Simple, with the most terrifying substance known to man. Soap.
小补。
That's right. Mizutsune secrete a specialized fluid from their bodies that is almost chemically identical to soap. So Mizutsune is a dishwasher's best friend, and much like the real deal, it is very slippery, meaning a lathered up Mizutsune can slide across the ground like someone sliding across a waxed floor in their socks, while being able to use their long claws to anchor and stop themselves. But their opponent, who does not have these claws for improved traction, are much more likely to fall flat on their faces while the Mizutsune almost dances across the ground, sliding out of the way of their attacks, making them slip and fall and even more. Now, for the most part, Mizutsune is a pretty chill monster. They really aren't out looking for problems. They just want to relax on the shore, sleep, fish, and maybe play around and blow giant bubbles. They'll generally leave you alone unless you provoke them first, but they're also more than willing to let you or any other threat walk away and won't pursue the fight any further once their aggressor has disengaged. However, that all goes out the window during breeding season, because the males get flooded with testosterone and go insane, fighting off other males and threats, trying to win favor with the females. Based. Anyway, this also means they'll attack humans in their blind rage, so you should avoid going fishing at this time so any angry male Mizu doesn't see you stealing his fish. Sorry, Blake.
No!
So, what will it look like if a Mizutsune gets testy with you? Well, as I said before, with their lathered up, soapy bodies, they can slide across the ground at high speeds, slamming into you like a speeding car. Or stop right in front of you and spin on a dime to slam that giant paintbrush of a tail into you, and removing that T from paintbrush. They can leap great distances to slam down on you, or just slam down on you with those giant curved feet with the giant hooked claw on them. They're also known to throw smaller but no less effective claw swipes at you, or deliver some nasty bites with those curved teeth that can do some serious damage. However, you may remember that Mizutsune is capable of producing a soap-like secretion from its body, and while it largely uses that to slide around easier to trip up its foes, it can also create huge bubbles and launch them as projectiles, coating whoever is hit with them in the soapy secretion, inflicting them with bubble blight, making it nearly impossible to get a solid footing, causing you to slip and slide while desperately trying not to lose your footing. Hunters have even reported finding it impossible to draw their weapons without falling in this state. However, it's not all bad, as Mizutsune has also been known to launch green bubbles with an almost restorative quality to them, healing minor injuries, as well as red bubbles that seem to give hunters increase in strength, giving them greater attack power. So, to recap, don't touch the clear bubbles, make a beeline for the green and red ones. And last but not least, Mizutsune also possesses an organ known as a flood sac, which allows them to produce vast quantities of water. And they, like several other monsters, use this in the form of a thin, highly pressurized beam of water that basically acts as a jet cutter, blasting water with enough strength to cut through steel. So it shouldn't come as much surprise that such a beam can cut through other monsters and cleave insufficiently armored humans in twain with almost no resistance. But if they can tone it down, this would also make them great companions for a lot of labor workers, as they could help out with pressure washing, and if they seriously tone it down, they could be both the soap dispenser and rinse hose for a dishwasher. So, how do you wring out a malevolent Mizutsune? Well, they are weak to electricity, so thunder is your best bet, followed by dragon, then ice, surprisingly enough, with fire being the least effective effective element, with water obviously having no effect. From there, the most important thing would be to target its front legs and break off its long claws. Doing so will prevent it from hooking into the ground and stopping itself as it slides along, so it will lose its balance and get a taste of its own medicine. And as for the armor, it's just as gorgeous as Mizutsune itself. Gorgeous, long flowing robes with vibrant colors and cute little fox ears for cosplaying Miyabi. The female version having a lovely hood, and the male version featuring some extra fluffy pieces and elegant elevated shoulders. The weapons are also beautiful, the bow having a sleek, elegant design with a nice little tuft of fur, while the dual blades are a set of sleek, stylish wakazashis with lovely colors and ornate designs printed on them. And of course, the Palico and Palamute armors are also perfect, striking just the right balance of elegant and adorable. Lovely robes, a stylish Wagasa weapon for the Palico, and cute masks for both. So that is the normal Mizutsune, but we've still got a few more brands of soap snake to get through. And up next is our Leviathan Deviant Soul Seer Mizutsune. And the most glaring, the most obvious difference is that this Mizutsune is blind, its eyes having been severely injured and scarred in a fight, reportedly from a Zenogre. And this blindness has led to its other main difference, a much darker color, because this Mizutsune no longer hunts for a mate, so he no longer grooms himself to stay presentable for the ladies. But that also means they don't go crazy during mating season. Found in all the same places with all the same threats, you may think this Mizutsune is at a disadvantage for being blind, but eventually its fins, tail, claws, and especially its bubble foam developed to compensate for its lack of sight. It gained a mastery over its bubble foam, which it spreads out throughout the area, so it senses the vibrations whenever something disturbs it, like a spider sensing when anything touches its web. But there is still one disadvantage to being blind. Since it can't see whatever disturbed its bubble foam, it can't identify the disturbance, so it treats everything like a threat and responds with an enraged aggression, going for the kill to ensure its safety. Yeah, bet you thought you were safe when I said they don't lose it during mating season, didn't you? So, how would this blind beast beat you into the bedrock? Well, it has all the same attacks as a normal Mizutsune, but it is notably larger than any other Mizutsune, making it slower but also much stronger, as well as making that famous hooked claw of theirs even longer and deadlier. And grooming doesn't just keep a Mizutsune's fur pretty, it also keeps it soft, meaning the ungroomed Soul Seer's fur is hard as a rock, making it much harder to damage, but also meaning its tail swipes are like getting hit with a sledgehammer instead of a Nerf bat. But the biggest change is that Soul Seer gained a particular taste for burst arowana, a fish that produces chemicals that makes it explode when disturbed. And this diet has mixed those chemicals into its bubble foam, making it similarly combustible and allowing the Soul Seer to breathe flaming blue bubbles that will explode for huge damage once disturbed. Although I have recently heard reports from the Forbidden Lands that the Mizutsune found there can do this too. So now every Mizutsune can breathe exploding bubbles. Questions for another time, Ruby. Anyway, this new form of secretion offers them help in one more way. You see, while the Soul Seer doesn't regularly groom itself on its downtime to stay pristine, it does still groom itself in combat, applying this explosive secretion to its legs and tail. You guys can see where this is going, right? In addition to allowing it to sense the bubble foam in its surroundings better, it also strengthens the power of its strikes by letting it hit you with explosive strikes that can also leave you burning. However, what's good for the vanilla Mizutsune is good for the Soul Seer. Thunder is the way to go to give this guy a nasty shock, and if you manage to break his hook claws, he's gonna slip, slide, and fall on the bubble foam just as bad as you are. You may think that's gonna be harder with its fur being harder from the lack of grooming, but remember, it does groom itself to give its attacks an explosive boost. And while that does make them more dangerous, it does also soften up the fur around its legs and tail, making them vulnerable targets once again. And the armor is just as gorgeous as the original, maybe even more so. It's now a deeper, more vibrant red as opposed to the lighter, less intense red, and the furred bits are much more unkempt, giving it a more vicious, wild appearance. And similarly, the weapons also have a more intense, reddish tint to them that give them an air of menace on top of their elegant design. But we're still not done yet, my friends, as there is one more species to cover, which is probably my personal favorite. It is a true beauty, even amongst the already gorgeous ranks of the Mizutsune family. However, that beauty is undermined by the horrors of the inferno of the violet Mizutsune. A beautiful new form of our favorite fox, this Mizutsune starts out as somewhat dull looking, scales and fins that are mostly gray, though with faint violet scales around the edges, hence the name. And its fur starts out as an intimidating but also pretty standard black, which we've seen more than enough. But once it gets excited and its blood starts flowing, it brightens up to a gorgeous silvery white, and its fins glow a beautiful lilac color that blends beautifully with both the white scales and the still black fur. Many consider this to be the prettiest of the already beautiful species of Mizutsune. So far, we have only found the violet Mizutsune in the Infernal Springs, a destroyed battlefield where a large force once waged war against a Namatsu, as well as the Forlorn Arena, as it is a rare species, which is basically a fancier way of calling it a subspecies. I really don't understand the differentials here. Regardless, as the name would imply, it is rare and we know very little about it. In fact, one of the reasons it's dubbed a rare species is because the guild is hesitant to call it a subspecies of Mizutsune, as Mizutsune are leviathans and many scholars don't believe violet Mizutsune fits the mold. You see, one of the defining traits of the leviathans, even the more land-based ones, is that they can all swim, which violet Mizutsune cannot. It's really only in the class because it's related to normal Mizutsune. Ignoring the bureaucracy for now, violet Mizutsune is still similar in personality to the original. It's a calm creature that just wants to spend its days napping peacefully and snapping up some fish here or there. However, we only find it in the two places most frequented by the most powerful monsters out there, elder dragons or creatures at their level. As such, if the violet Mizutsune needs to choose violence, it is very good at it. For you see, the violet Mizutsune does not produce the same bubble foam we know. Instead, it produces a much more concentrated secretion known as white synovial fluid, a solution hundreds of times more potent than bubble foam. To the point, it is both flammable and toxic, so you could understand how that could be harmful. But on the plus side, when mixed with a little flaming Espinasse venom, it becomes a great antidote to the most potent Curio virus. And this secretion is the main focus of the fight. Physically, everything is the exact same. It just just hits a lot harder, so watch out for that. But again, the fluid is where it's at, as once it sends out its bubbles, after a brief period, they suddenly ignite and go flying at its target with guided precision, despite the Violet Mizutsune not even touching them. Like, how is that even possible, Kronk?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Anyway, as previously stated, the white Xenovial fluids of the Violet Mizutsune are incredibly flammable, to the point even simple friction can cause them to ignite, covering the area in white-hot flames. And it still has its water jet that can cut you down from nearly the other end of the arena, as well as also creating enough friction to light its fluids. But by far, its most devastating attack is creating a bubble the size of a spirit bomb. And just like said spirit bomb, it takes forever to make and leaves the Violet Mizutsune vulnerable to attack, but it's a huge payoff, as once the bubble is ready, the Violet Mizutsune will make a vortex powerful enough to pull in any nearby targets before dropping the bomb on them for an enormous explosion only the strongest of armors will allow you to survive, and just barely if you do. So, how do you burst this beast's burning bubble? For this one, ice is actually your best bet. Thunder taking silver, then water securing the bronze, with dragon gaining an honorable mention and fire not even qualifying. And as always, your priority should be to break its hook claws so it goes tumbling whenever it tries to slide around. And finally, like I said before, doing its ultimate spirit bomb technique leaves it wide open for a counterattack. So if you manage to do enough damage, you'll be able to knock down the blazing fox wyvern right underneath that giant bubble of gasoline, which will promptly ignite prematurely and fall down on the Violet Mizutsune, doing massive damage with the huge explosion. And much like the Violet Mizutsune, this is easily my favorite version of the armor. Fluffier robes, more ornate accessories, and long flowing bits. Plus, the color scheme just works so well. The pure white is complemented so well by the soft lilac accents that transition into black edgings. And that goes just as much for the weapons. Nearly identical, but the colors just pop so much more than they already did. They're just absolutely stunning. So, that is the Violet Mizutsune, a truly incredible subspecies of an already amazing monster. Apart from simply looking beautiful, it's amazing how it manages to be so similar to the Mizutsune we know and love while being so uniquely different. Trails of white-hot fire, bubbles that somehow defy physics and chase you down without any prompting, and its massive fireball that is as glorious as it is terrifying. And with that, we've finally reached the end of our discussion on Mizutsune as a whole. A truly fantastic Leviathan that keeps itself fresh in your mind by standing out so much from any of its fellow serpentine beasts. And it also helps that, as long as it's not mating season, they're one of the most calm and peaceful monsters you'll ever see. But at the same time, it's a good reminder for all of us that love can truly bring out the beast within. And there you have it, ladies and swordsmen. That is my lore on Mizutsune. Like I said, it's just incredible. It looks so beautiful. Its colors are nice. I like its fur, and it gives off the kitsune vibe. That's always nice. It's just beautiful. Probably the prettiest of the Fated Four, and just generally one of the best monsters to look at. And its combat is so unique. Like, nothing else has bubble blights, so yeah, that alone just makes it unique and makes it stand out from anything else. Just in general, it hits all the marks it needs to be an absolutely fascinating monster. And Soul Seer just turns everything up to 11. It's already an interesting fight, but it just becomes so much more challenging as Soul Seer. And then Violet Mizutsune, oh man. Again, absolutely beautiful, but also an absolute nightmare to fight. Like, it is a true challenge. It is one of the few monsters I can still lose to with endgame weaponry and armor and all that stuff. So yeah, truly there is just no other challenge like it in the game. I absolutely love it. Like I said, it's probably my favorite of all the Mizutsune line, and for good reason. Although, you know, there is the Thunder version from Monster Hunter Explore, was it? I would have liked to see that back, but oh well, what can you do? But again, great fight, great visuals. It's unique, so it stands out. Absolute 10 out of 10 monster. And so for next time, we'll finally be moving on to Wilds monsters. And what better one to start with than the flagship itself, Arkveld. Again, another amazing design. Its whipped things are so unique. And to discuss them, I'll have to discuss, you know, the Guardians and the Forbidden Lands in general. So it's gonna be a big lore dump. A fascinating monster with a fascinating story behind it. So I'm really looking forward to doing that, and hopefully you guys are looking forward to seeing it. But for now, thank you all so much for watching. If you like this, want to see more, go ahead and slash that subscribe button. If you like this video, give a quick cut to the like button. Leave a comment down below. Share it around with all your friends. Be sure to click the notification bell so you never miss when I upload a video. And be sure to follow me on Twitter. Then I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, ladies and swordsmen, stay sharp.